morning, friends. You are welcome to lecture 4. Today we want to talk about money and banking. This is a very interesting topic. I believe you would also find interesting because I find it interesting. So let's start with the basics. Barter trade. Have you heard of the term barter before? Until the various items identified as money came into being, goods were directly exchanged for goods. An example, a hunter will exchange a grass cutter for 5 tubers of yam directly from a farmer. Another example can be exchange of maize for cassava or a bunch of firewood for food. That is how trade went about. Now, the main challenge was if a hunter needed only yam or was prepared to exchange his grass cutter only for yam, then he had to look for a farmer who had yam and at the same time wanted grass cutter. This problem is known as double coincidence of wants. So double coincidence of wants as a problem implies that there was a problem of identifying someone who has what you need and at the same time is in need of what you have to allow for that exchange. In the absence of such coincidence of wants, exchange could be very, very difficult and might not even be feasible. Right, so there were some problems identified with barter, which are indivisibility of some commodities. So in barter, some commodities are not divisible. Assuming you just want a cup of rice and you have a cow, you cannot divide your cow into 20 different parts, exchange for the rice and still get back your live cow. Dividing your cow means you are killing your cow. So it was a challenge. And also storage of some commodities. In barter, some commodities were are perishable, and it's difficult to store them. So to store your commodity and exchange it for another commodity in the future became very difficult. Let me just give an example. Assuming you have tomato and you want to exchange it for a television. Your tomato, you have about 100 boxes of tomato. You cannot exchange all the 100 boxes of tomato for a television. Probably you want to exchange just one box, but for your tomato you cannot store it for quite long. So as you go around and looking for someone who has television and needs tomato and not getting, by the time you realize your tomato is spoiled. So it becomes very difficult. It would have been advantageous if you could exchange your tomato for someone who for maybe your tomato for a radio. Maybe the person owning the radio have need of your tomato, right? But looking for someone who has need of what you have and also have what you need was difficult. And by the time you get the person, your commodity would have perished. So that is also another challenge. And also carriage of commodities. Some commodities are so immobile. To carry them to another place is impossible. It's impossible. You have a house, you want to exchange it for a car, but the owner of the car is in another region. You can't carry your house to the owner of the car's place. You can't carry your house around and be looking for someone who has a car. So that is also a big challenge. And the last is identifying an exchange rate. Now, if the double coincidence of wants problem has been surmounted, you found someone who is in need of your product and also has something you need. Identifying an exchange rate is something very difficult. How many bags of rice should be used to exchange one good? There will be a banter somewhere. The good owner or the good seller will say, "Oh, come on, bags of rice. You have to exchange 100 bags of rice for this good because this good is a very valuable commodity I have." And you might also think Just one goat for 100 bags of rice, too expensive. So identify the exchange rate was very, very difficult. That brought in the need for us to have a commodity that can be used for exchange. So you exchange your commodity for that commodity that can be used for exchange, so that you hold it with you, and wherever you go, if you want to buy something different, you use that legally accepted commodity as the medium of exchange. So that is how money emanated. On the basis of law, money can be defined as any commodity that is backed by law to be accepted as a medium of exchange. So in this regard, money is a legal tender for purposes of being used in exchange of goods and services. A legal tender is any item or commodity that has the backing of law to be accepted in payment of goods and services, and also for settlement of debts. On the basis of functions or roles played by money in an economy, money can be defined as any commodity that is generally accepted as a medium of exchange, measure of value, store of value, and standard of deferred payments. Right, so let me just touch on the functions of money. Medium of exchange. So money is any commodity that can be used to exchange for another good or service. Measure of value. Money should be able to measure the value of a commodity you are buying. So for instance, we have in the Ghana cedis, if you want to buy a pen, a pen is 1 Ghana cedi. The value of the pen is measured by the commodity that is actually used for the medium of exchange. So 1 Ghana cedi, 1 Ghana cedi, it's stated in the value of the commodity being used. Store of value. So if you have a commodity that can just perish easily, the thing or the commodity that is accepted as money can be used to store the value of the perishable commodity. For instance, you can just give the perishable commodity to someone who has the commodity accepted as money, and the person will give you the money. The money cannot perish within a few days or a month. So in that case, you have stored the value of what you had. And the last is standard of deferred payment. So money should be able to be used for making or settlement of debt. You should be able to borrow the commodity, which is money, and pay it back in the next future. Not every commodity can be borrowed and paid back without a loss of value, right? So you can't borrow someone's tomato today and say, I'll give it to you next week. Next week, when you send the tomato to the person, the tomato would have perished. But for money, the currency we have, you can borrow and pay almost the same value, or I would say the same value in a near future. Okay, so forms of money. We have different forms of money. As you can see, these images, before we started printing notes and others, there's a bit of history behind the money we have now. So at first, before the printing of notes and coins and the instruments of credits came into being, there are some precious metals that were accepted as money, right? Yes, like gold, diamond, silver, and others that were accepted as money. And it got to a time people sent these precious metals to a goldsmith. The goldsmith will use these precious metals for ornaments and others. And so what happened was the goldsmith more or less became like a bank. So you send your precious metal to the goldsmith, or your gold to the goldsmith, and the goldsmith will give you a receipt. The receipt shows that you have this metal with him. And so people started using the receipt to buy items. If you are buying something and you show the receipt to the seller knows, because the goldsmith's signature is on the receipt. He knows specifically that yes, indeed, what you are claiming you have is true. So I'll give you the item, then later the receipt you have given me, I'll take it to the goldsmith to collect the gold. So that is how it started. That is how it started. and when everything is legalized, the goldsmith was replaced by a central bank. Okay, anyway, so for money we have different forms. We want to look at the first, coins. Coins are pieces of metals in different shapes and sizes with different face values backed by law to be used for as a medium of exchange. And normally coins are usually smaller denominations and allow the public to make petty purchases with ease. And we have the second time, which is the currency notes. We have 50 Ghana cedis, we have 100 Ghana cedis, now we have 200 Ghana cedis just on a note. So they are pieces of paper, often rectangular in shape, that is embossed by the issuing authority in Ghana, the Bank of Ghana, and also backed by law to be used as a medium of exchange. So in Ghana, the Central Bank, Bank of Ghana, supervises the printing of currency notes and minting of coins. And one I know you might not be familiar with is the instruments of credit. That is also considered as money. Yeah, a number of items fall under the instruments of credit, like checks, treasury bills, promissory notes, bills of exchange. They are all considered as money, though they are not in the form of currency notes. For instance, if you have a check, you can make a payment to someone and the person will accept it, though you have not given the person a currency note or coin. The person accepts it on the basis that if I take the check to the bank, I'll get the value of what is written on it. Yes. So some of these monies we have mentioned are linked to actual money. So if you have a treasury bill, for instance, it's linked to actual money in a bank. So they are as well considered as money. Okay, I've talked about the functions of money, medium of exchange. It should be used to exchange for another good or service. Measure of value. It should be used to measure the value of a good or service. So looking at a good, maybe the size, the quality, you can say this good commands a value of maybe 100 cedis, 200 cedis. Store of value. It should be able to store the value of a good or a service it is exchanged for. So yeah, you have exchanged your perishable commodity for this money. The money should be able to keep the value for quite a long time. And standard of deferred payments, it should be used to settle debts. It should allow the payment of it should allow borrowing and lending and payments in the near future. Right, so we want to look at the features of money. Anything you hold that does not have most of these features but is called money, is actually no more money. So everything, any commodity considered as money should be stable in value. That means if the value should right, let's kindly pause here. Let's continue in the next slide because of the size. Thank you.